Wormhole's going live. 3, 2.
This is The Wormhole, presented by Team FearWorm. Interviews, education, anything and everything to do with Halloween and haunted houses. And of course, marketing.
Well, hello everybody. Happy Friday. It is the FearWorm Wormhole. We are back and we have a very special guest today and a great topic today to talk about when it comes to haunted house marketing and the creative fun part of all of that. But before we bring on our guest, I do want to bring in our another special FearWormer for you guys. That's Mr. Ernest Corder. So Ernest, how are you today?
I'm awesome, man. How are you doing?
It's Friday. I'm super ready for this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to talk like fun haunt creative with an awesome person.
Yeah, you know, we always spend, everybody's always like, talk about social media, talk about this, talk about that. You realize none of it is any good if you don't have good creative, right?
Yeah.
Like we always say, the creative's 50% of it. You know, how do you stand out? How do you stand out if you're the little guy, if you're the new guy, if you're whatever? Great creative.
Right, exactly.
You know?
So I guess without any further ado, let's bring on our special guest, Mr. Abe Robinson from Blind7 Creative and Photography. Abe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing good. So I guess we could probably just hop right in and ask, how's the weather in Cleveland today?
Well, I haven't left my house yet, but it's 50. According to the computer, it's 53 degrees. It's probably cloudy and miserable outside, or it's blistering sun. If I could wait 15 minutes, it'll change though.
Yeah, that sounds about like Cleveland. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to have you here, Abe. You know, when we do at FearWorm, we do a variety of different levels of photography and creative and video. And sometimes people just hand us stuff, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's junk. And you know, we have to live with it. But when we want to, when we can get the budget and we want to do it right, we call Abe.
I appreciate that.
At FearWorm. I mean, that's how we do it. That's why we wanted to have you on here. And you're, you know, so Abe's both photography and videography and creative as well. I mean, a lot of the ideas that we use come from team effort, including Abe. So why don't you tell everybody that maybe doesn't know you, like, what does Blind7 do? What do you guys do? Just so they have precursor.
I mean, we started off as just a photography company, just doing, you know, out of the box. I got known for dark glamour styled with models for years. I actually started off as a nature photographer, but kind of moved on from there. And then started working with models, did a bunch of modeling stuff over the years. And the more and more I got into it, the more I could, you know, express the weirdness in myself. The more horror the images came out. And then I'd say about 10 years ago, I started doing a little bit of video work, and then it just kind of spiraled into, we do video, we do photo, we do creative concepts, we do lighting, assisting, directing, pretty much every piece of the creative you can imagine. Mine is pretty much VFX work at this point.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have people you usually use, or do you hire crews from other towns, or how do you do it?
It really depends on the situation. I've always had this, I never wanted to be the cookie cutter guy where every shoot is exactly the same. I don't think I've repeated a shoot in 20 years. Like I strive to feed off of what I'm supposed to be shooting and try to figure out a new way to do it every single time. So I may hire, like I'm getting older, so cam opping and stuff like that. I bring in somebody from that. My buddy Shane in Wisconsin, he does a lot of the cam op work now. I like to work in teams with people, and I feed off of other people for ideas. So working with new people, like, if I'm hiring from, I much prefer to bring my close-knit crew to shoots, but I have no problem hiring outside because it means that I get to learn from somebody else. I mean, I've been in the industry 20 years, but I'm still learning every day too.
Yeah. So what's your favorite job? What's a favorite production you've done?
Oh, that's a rough one. Haunt-wise,
yeah,
I would have to say probably the latest Evil Intentions one was probably one of my favorites. And that's because like we approach that completely differently than we do normal haunt stuff. And we made a movie, in 2 days. It was
a wild shoot.
Yeah, it allowed me to flex a little bit in areas that most of the time you don't get to do in haunts. And that's just the cinematography of it. Being able to set up a shot and taking more time to visualize what you're looking at instead of it being, somebody running down a hallway. That's loud.
It should be muted.
It is not.
Interesting. I will just pause that then and get rid of it.
Apparently. Yeah. Evil was a good one for that reason. It was completely outside the box, and that's what I try to strive for in everything. But you still have to make it look like a haunted house. So,
well, y'all talk about that shoot. I wasn't on that. I mean, I've seen the end product, but I mean, how did y'all come up with the ideas? Who did what? I know EI guys were real involved in that too, for everything from digging graves in their backyard and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to touch on too, is like that particular shoot. You have a haunted house client that is in a real like casket factory, and so it's like, how do you tell the story of a casket? And so Abe had the idea, like, why don't we shoot it like a casket being made? And so we had kind of like a carpenter being filmed, and then the casket, like, what's the whole, I guess, the life of that casket from start to finish. And yeah, it was like, Abe, I forget, was there 4 or was there 5 shooting locations? I think only one of them was the haunt.
Right. Well, the guys at EI are real sticklers for the story, and they should be, because the haunt has such great history. Mm-hmm. So they've really flushed out their storyline. And when they came to you guys and then came to me to figure out what we were going to film, they were very adamant about the building being the story. So even though we didn't do much in the actual haunt, the story was bigger than the haunt anyways. So it didn't matter that we filmed, the graveyard scene in a backyard of one of the employees instead of filming it in a makeshift graveyard inside the building. We wanted that realism, and we wanted it to look like a movie when it was finally done. So, and not all haunts will take that extra step to make sure that their story is being told through the creative, and EI definitely did.
That's a good point. Actually, when you think about it, we get new haunts, first year places all the time, and they're like, I have no assets. So we shoot every year. We have stock stuff that we license out to people that can use every year. But you could have done that EI haunt if they hadn't even built their attraction yet. You could have done that commercial. Mm-hmm. You could have done that whole thing.
Like we just did for Brighton. The Rich, he wanted something different. We gave him something different. It's not about, the industry has been around for a very long time, and everybody's got Joe Schmo with a chainsaw running at the camera. Mm-hmm. The majority of your clients, the people who are seeing that on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, they need to see a little bit of that. But it's time to evolve the advertising. You've got your people who are going to come see you anyways, whether there's a chainsaw wielder or not. So you kind of have to appeal to a new variety of people, and you got to take a risk to do it sometimes. And being willing to do different things is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I totally
think
agree
about
with that.
evil, sorry to interrupt, Evil Intentions, the Chicago market, right? There's a dozen legitimate attractions in that, or more, right? Within driving distance to go to. Everybody's got a chainsaw, everybody's got that character. Yeah, you need people to understand it is a haunted attraction, haunted house, haunted hayride, whatever you're doing, right? But standing apart, right? If you want to be different from everybody else. And no, it's not cheap to do, but it's also not end of the world expensive.
Right.
Ideas are free if you come up with them, it's
well, and that's the thing. Like, I don't mind filming other people's ideas. Like, that's not, I'm a director. I'm a cinematographer. I of course would love to have my input in there. But if a haunt was to come to you guys and be like, well, this is the idea we want. Who do you want, to film it? And you guys come to me and you're like, look, we have a fully fleshed out idea. We want you to do it. Obviously, I'm going to put my spin on it because I'm an artist. But I'm going to come in. We're going to make that commercial and we're going to make it the best we can. Haunt advertising isn't much different than regular advertising. It's got its niche. It's got its. You watch Hulu or you watch your regular cable TV if you're one of the weirdos that still have cable TV. The commercials are always trying to one up each other, and it's done in a specific style for TV. For haunts, it's always been done in one style. It's time to bring in something new.
And even talking about that, like you kind of mentioned like the chainsaw wielding dude. Like, we're not saying that that's not good to shoot,
right?
But because like even that, what you can think of is like, okay, we've seen the chainsaw in a video 1,000 times, and every haunted house has one. But if you're going to include it in your shoot, what can you do that's new? Like, what's a new way to shoot that? I mean,
right.
We're working on that concept right now,
right?
And so it's like there's nothing opposed to like having something typical like a clown in your haunt that's bouncing around a hallway. But we've all seen that before. Your customers have all seen that before. And so like, what is it different you can do if you're going to go after the same idea, the same clown? What new can you do?
At the very beginning of 2020, when the stuff happened, I filmed for for Chippewa Lake actually, and we did like a PSA thing for them to still be open. And we used a chainsaw, but we used it in a different way. It was, the character cleaning the chainsaw to show that it was, because of new protocols. It's little things like that can make the difference. If we just showed that character running down the pig stall with the chainsaw, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as correct.
Right. So speaking of Chippewa, I think it's a good opportunity to bring in a video, Abe, that you made of the Chippewa Lake Slaughterhouse. This is a short video, but let's hop it in and take a look at that. So that's a little creepy. Abe, can you walk us through the process of like thinking about this video?
Well, the funny thing about Chippewa is they're one of the outliers when it comes to creative. A lot of times I spend, hours thinking about things and putting it together and, writing it all down, filling notebooks up with random ideas and stuff like that. I've worked with I guess you could call him the creative guy behind Chippewa, and the owner, Vaughn, and Rick actually is the creative. for years now, and we work so well together that it's literally just show up and we figure it out, and 6 hours later we have that. Like we work so well together. We've worked together for so long. I've worked with his old bands and new bands and all sorts of stuff with him. So we like play off each other really well. And Chippewas, their whole thing is their creepy family aspect. So it's real easy to be like, well, what would the family be doing, in their day-to-day lives? Instead of them attacking the camera, what are they doing? There's, two of them working in the meat market. There's one of them making leather out of people. Like, it's more creep than it's shockingly scary.
It's interesting that you say you just show up and shoot that, because like, I guess on this particular shoot, someone showed up and said, you know what, I'm going to eat a bunch of maggots and bugs today and just chomp those in my mouth. So someone just showed up, I guess, and just wanted to do that.
Yeah, pretty much.
They just have buckets of maggots and stuff laying around there just in case.
Yeah, actually, well, no, I'm not going to give that away. I'm not going to give away that secret.
So that video brings to mind something we were talking about earlier, is talking about shooting in low light. It's really hard to do, right? I mean, haunts for typically low light situations, and you go in somebody's haunted attraction, and if you just blow the whole thing up with light, then you give it all away. It's like walking into a nightclub in the daytime with the lights on, right? It's not
right.
So explain how you do it. How do you make it? Maybe give a tip. What can people do?
Low light shooting has, a lot of people think that, for the camera nerds out there, they're going to be like, oh, just crank the ISO up, you'll be fine. And for sometimes that works, but I guess the best piece of advice is don't be afraid of shadows. Like, everybody thinks that it needs to be either super dark or super bright when you're filming. I would rather it be light needs to be intended. Like, there has to be intent behind where the light is. So you need to light the scene as if you were lighting your living room. You don't just pop a giant light in the ceiling in your living room and blast light in there. It would be annoying to sit in there. And so you place lamps in particular positions that light for aesthetics. And it's the same thing with, when you're filming, you need lights in places that accent walls and accent your talent, but don't be afraid to have a dark spot. That dark spot is going to add depth to what you're lighting.
What about shooting light and then doing it in post? I mean, what kind of post?
Okay, you can always go darker, but you can't always go brighter in post. So it's better to have, obviously within reason, because you'll blow out the highlights, but filming brighter and editing in post when you darken, and that is much more obtainable than going the opposite direction.
Abe, would you
go ahead?
Would you talk about maybe just a few words about lighting for the haunt versus lighting for a shoot?
They're identical. Lighting for a photo shoot is, you use different machinery. Like, you can use, LEDs and things like that for photography, all the way up to, video. Strobes are a different thing. And I started as a strobe photographer. So natural light, and then went into strobe. Strobe use is, it's photography only. Like, you can't, sync your camera video wise with it. So I found over the years that I still use a mixed blend. I use everything from random household lights to thousands of dollars worth of, lighting equipment. I shot a shoot a couple years ago for a national act band. All their t-shirts, the photos that went on the t-shirts were shot with an iPhone, not with they weren't shot with the iPhone, but the flashlight on the iPhone. I literally we needed a bounce light to go, and we didn't have another light. So we turned the flashlight on and stuck it in a teddy bear and aimed it at the character. And there we go. Now we've lit an entire merch line with nothing more than a single LED off of an iPhone 3, I think. Like, so it's about being creative with the light you have and being able to I've got 20 years doing this. Would never expect somebody to be able to be like, oh, well, I know exactly what I'm doing the moment they walk on set the very first time. Even with my 20 years, I'm still figuring stuff out. Like, you've got to know when your strong suits and you know your non-strong suits. So, being able to play with light is probably the best skill to have.
Yeah, anybody can point a camera and press a button, right? But point it, right?
Right.
And press a button. But, yeah, they don't know which angle to be in or whatever. But yeah, it's all lighting. What about stuff for people who are using iPhones, right? So ideas for people who are just, low budget doing themselves. Are there any lights, any cheapos? Like we've been using these wand lights that kind of look like, you can a lightsaber or something you can use.
I mean, you can use pretty much anything. Like I've seen people use work lights and, just as long as there's lighting there and you can see what you're doing, you're going to capture a decent image. The best thing for somebody who's, whether they're using an iPhone or they're using an RE65, film camera or whatever, that doesn't matter as long as the light is where it needs to be. So if you could film an entire haunt video with a ring light and your iPhone, there's going to be a whole lot of, I personally wouldn't do that, but you could do it.
It's all going to look the same.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about gear. What do you use? What do you like to shoot on? And you use a lot of different things, right? You use a lot of different cameras too.
When I first started out in photography, there was, online, it's Nikon, it's Canon, it's Sony, there's fanboys for each, brand. I actually went to this little tiny mom and pop shop, and they're no longer around, but they were called Vans Camera. And they were, I went in and I asked, I'm looking to buy my first camera. And the guy behind the counter put a Sony, a Canon, and a Nikon on the counter. And he goes, which one feels better in your hand? All three brands are pretty much identical. It's just which one feels better in your hand. So I ended up going with the Nikon, and I was a Nikon shooter for years, and I still am, for photos mainly. But for film and for doing video work, I use everything from my Nikon to GoPros to Blackmagic to Red, whatever fits that particular job. There's some people need a Red because they need that specific look. Other people need a GoPro because that's what the look they're going for. The cameras nowadays, even your iPhone takes a great photo. It takes a great video. It's all about what you're doing with it afterwards. Do you need 6K? Do you need 10K? Do you need 12K? Do you need 14 stops of dynamic range? There's a lot to go into it. And most of it is preference for what the end result needs to be.
Mm-hmm. So you're
nowadays
really
everything's.
I was going to talk about drones.
I was going to say nowadays everything's like on TikTok or Facebook, so it's all compressed, and it's like you really need the 6K video.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they say it was like 85% of people view everything on their cell phones now.
Yeah,
and while yes, here's the thing: you film something that looks great on an iPhone or on a regular phone, and then somebody decides to watch it on their TV and it looks like absolute garbage. Mm-hmm. You're doing a disservice to the person who went and spent $1,000 on their 85-inch Samsung TV. Why not make it for the person who's going to watch it on the TV on their Xbox and look great for the people who are watching it on their cell phones?
Well, the other thing is when you shoot on 6K, if you decide you're shooting something this big and you're like, yeah, but all the action was right here.
Yeah.
You can punch in and not lose any.
Which is a lot more difficult to do on small sensors. So you can have a camera that shoots, 6K and its sensors, only a half size, only a half-inch big. It's not going to be able to crop in as nice as, something that's got a full frame or even a Super 35. So
or pull stills from it as well, right?
Right.
Your website, your social, and everything with all your.
Oh yeah. Most cameras nowadays, they do a good enough job, but learning camera equipment is that's why there's camera departments, and that's why there's people like me. I spend my day reading nerdy stuff about camera gear while you guys are out there, doing what you're supposed to be doing. haunt owners shouldn't have to worry too much about, they're paying me to do the job. It's my job to know that stuff. It's not theirs.
Have you ever made a movie, full-blown movie?
Not a full-blown movie. I did a short film when I first bought my first gimbal, and we did it in like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours, and it was just a I bought a new piece of gear. I like to practice, and I could do a lot better now.
What would it be about? What would your movie, when you write one, what's it going to be?
I actually have written one. I didn't.
Oh, I know you have. I didn't know you had, but I mean, obviously, you probably couldn't stop yourself. Yeah.
Let's just say it's somewhere between Tim Burton and Guy Ritchie.
Oh shit! So it's dark and moody, but all the weird, fun camera angles and lighting.
Yeah. let's say, was it The City of Lost Children had played a lot of role into that type of visuals. So,
what makes you be able to come up with ideas like this?
The honest answer is trauma, but I've always been kind of the weird kid who, I had a lot of friends growing up, but not at first. At first it was solidarity, made my imagination go, and then it was just being around creative people, like, associating with people who didn't always think about, going to college and, getting good grades. The bad kids got creative. We had to get out of trouble all the time. So I did a little bit of that, a little bit of this. I would say that just not limiting myself is probably one of the biggest reasons I'm as creative as I am.
I think that's the key right there. Like, we're having I forget when Joshua Grinnell's on a couple weeks.
I think it's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. TerraVault, but I won't spill too much, but, talking about he had 2 years during COVID to come up and not limit himself. And the ideas they came up with were unbelievable. I think people in this industry, it come up with the weirdest, craziest idea ever, and then draw it back so that you don't like offend or like it's still marketable or whatever. But man, there's so many people with so many amazingly creative minds in this industry that just like let it go crazy, because you kind of like with the light, you can always darken it. I guess on this you could always draw it back, but go crazy.
I think the only limitation I've ever really had is budget. Like,
that's the truth.
Even when I was doing photo shoots and stuff, like, for models years ago, like the only limitation was the fact that, like, I'd be like, all right, well, we got to do dollar store this, or, we got to do this because between the model, myself, or whatever, we couldn't afford, the giant mask, or let's hire a makeup artist that'll spend 14 hours doing this job. So yeah, it's just about budget, really.
Can you imagine how easy your job would maybe be if you had those budgets? But maybe, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be as creative, right? If you could just hire all that stuff. I mean, the movies that spend $100 million making a movie and have all the money in the world, then they can be creative and fulfill it.
But even then, you've always got the money man standing over you going, well, I gave you $100 million. You better do this. So
yeah, it's nice to have enough, like with enough crew. When we shoot, I always feel one of the biggest drawbacks is when you're trying to do too much and you don't have enough crew. Too much in too little time without enough crew, and then you just can't.
Well, when I first started off, I was a one-man band, like just running everything myself. And then, I'd have people come on and help and things like that. But it would just be like, you realize as time goes on, you just can't do everything. And, having an assistant, grips, and having a cam op, and just a project manager that's making sure things are going right, being able to spread yourself out, you take on 20 jobs instead of 50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The gear is getting cheaper, right? There are, just like you mentioned with lights, Like we bought some lights for in the last couple of years that are like, I don't know, you pay $80 or $100 for this light, and you're like, man, I'm using this thing all the time. I got my $2,000 light kit sitting there in the box, and I don't want to carry it around, but works pretty good, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon had a lot to do with that because they take what works and then cheapen it up and
True.
Pop out all these little mid companies that sell it for dirt cheap. There is a benefit to some of. It's all about doing your research, I guess, because there are some things that you just can't. There's brands out there that they just can't compete with as far as quality of it goes. For instance, when I first started photography, I bought these light triggers off of eBay. They were the eBay special. It was like 3 for $39, and I was like, man, that's expensive. Couldn't believe it. I went in a course of 2 years. I probably went through 20, buying them over and over again. They'd work for 3 or 4 shoots and then they'd break. And then I decided one day that I was tired of it. I was, just going to go spend the money on the big boys. And I bought a set of Pocket Wizards, and at $99 a piece instead of $39 for 3 of them, I still have them. They still work.
Well, the other thing is they don't break on in the middle of your shoot.
Right. Yeah. They're reliable.
Yeah. I just got it in yesterday, a teleprompter, but I bought a good one. It's a 13-inch screen. You can see it from 15 feet away, $349. Is it? It doesn't come with the iPad, but it's and there was some for $69 and $89 or whatever. But, hell, it costs $200 to rent it for a day,
Right. That's the other thing. Sometimes it's better to rent. Sometimes it's better just to buy it.
Yeah, we know that lesson for sure, especially when it comes to trade shows.
Yeah. I found that because there's cheap brand, mid tier, and then there's super expensive brands when it comes to lighting and grip equipment and stuff. Rental houses always have the top tier.
Right.
The bottom tier you don't really want to buy because it's going to fall apart on you. So you go for that middle tier is normally a good bet. But it costs as much to rent the top tier as it does to buy the middle tier. So you might as well just buy the middle tier.
Yeah.
Unless you need something specific, then you're stuck renting it.
Or with your case where you're shipping it all or whatever instead.
Yeah.
Because you're shooting on location most of the time.
Yeah. The logistics of UPS have become very, very, they know me by name now.
Ernest, my next question I actually want to direct to you. And then I want Abe to chime in on this, and this is the importance of creative in an overall marketing plan. So what are what's your opinion? Let's just talk about how important is your creative assets really when it comes to your marketing?
Well, we always say it's 50-50. It's 50% the creative and 50% getting the right people to see it. Now, there always is, if you don't have much budget at all, you have to reach enough people or you're just wasting it. Right? You're not going to don't spend $10,000 on creative and then have a $5,000 ad budget. And that's great. You have this awesome creative and nobody saw it. Right? Our general rule and as an ad agency, general rule is about 10% of your budget going to creative. We've found in the haunted attractions industry, it's higher than that. Usually it's a higher percent in creative. I think it's more important because it's got to stand out, right? You're not selling, this isn't sandwiches or whatever, right? It's got to be great. Excuse me. And so much of it is going social media now that you need great creative and you need lots of it, right? So it doesn't go stale, and all the different social platforms, and you need verticals and horizontals, and you need scary, and you need stuff that TikTok will approve, and you need all these different things. So it's, a bigger portion of the budget, but people have to be careful, just like the haunted attraction owners want to run out and spend all their money on animatronics or whatever and have no money to market. They'd also rather spend their money on this amazing creative than a bunch of ads, but there has to be a balance. You're going to get it out there because nobody has enough money to run ads on the Super Bowl to reach everybody, right? Mostly doing Facebook and Instagram and YouTubes and, online ads, TikToks and Snapchats or whatever. So it needs to be, solid creative, it needs to be solid. Everybody doesn't have Blind7 budgets. You can aspire to it, but you can also be smart with creative, and you can say, yeah, I spent a whole bunch of money on this one shoot, but I got content for 3 years. I've got content for life on some of it, So yeah, I mean, there's a balance. There's always a balance. It's, great creative that nobody sees doesn't work. Crappy creative that everybody sees doesn't work. It's, find the balance.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hey, Abe, and then a similar question: as a creative, how much do you want the marketing to influence what you shoot?
Wait, repeat that. Sorry, you gotta cut out.
So it's a similar question for you, but how much would you want as a creative the marketing to influence what you're shooting?
I mean, I guess it really depends. Obviously, as artist myself, I want to be able to do what I want because it ends up being cool to me. But I realize as a business, I have to conform to certain things like, yeah, I'd love to play in blood all day long, but I can't do that because Facebook would knock it. I wish they were a little bit more lenient on some things, like they just kind of go overboard on it. But I would say 50-50. Like it's got to be, if I spend my time, my crew's time, and I spend my intellectual, whatever to come up with a great concept, and I work my ass off to get this commercial looking great, and they have no budget to put it out anywhere, then it was a waste of time for all of us. So I do agree with the 50-50. Like it needs to be, you need to have good creative and good marketing to go farther.
But you also have to, in Tyler's point, you may be running 6-second YouTube ads, right? And there's 6 seconds, and you have to keep in mind, it's not, I mean, you'll disagree with me maybe, but it's not art. We're trying to sell stuff, right? With advertising. If it doesn't, in the end, if it doesn't sell tickets, if it doesn't generate the interest, it failed, no matter how great the work is in advertising. So many people are so concentrated on, I'm going to win all these awards with this, and that's great, but you got fired, unfortunately, because it didn't sell tickets, didn't sell widgets, didn't sell whatever.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's my job to figure out how to make the advertising art. It's it could be as simple as I might see it as art because of the angle I filmed it at, but what I need to make sure that product stands out no matter what it is. So whether it's a tabletop whiskey bottle, or if it's a can of liquid death, or if it's a haunted house or an amusement park, you have to be able to see what you're selling and make it appealing.
Or at least know you're selling something, right?
Right.
I mean, is this a movie trailer I'm watching, or what is this an ad for? Is it an ad? And long format, you can have, long format 60-second video that just pops it at the end. But, when you're 15-second videos, did you get somebody's attention for a full 15 seconds? Do they actually know you're selling something? Do they actually know where to go to buy a ticket?
The nice thing is, though, a lot of the times it's all in. If the long form was done well, the short forms are easy to create because you take that long form and you're like, oh, that's cool. It's an artistic piece. We filmed a 2-minute, 1-minute, 3-minute long video. Now, if the visuals were done well in that 3-minute long video, now you have 3 minutes worth of content to cut up into an ever-changing 6-second. You end up with way more content than if you were to just go into it and be like, all right, we know we're going in for 10 6-second ads, so we're looking for a minute of footage. So you're concentrated on 2-second clips, and you don't end up with as much content in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always just say, well, honestly, pre-production is as important as the production itself, right? Know what you're going to get. Storyboard it or get your shot list, get everything that you got to get. Like we just did that shoot at the amusement park where it was just kind of run and gun, right? Because we're just 2-second clips of whatever it is. But when you're doing this, you better, it's a big production when you're getting everybody together and the makeup and the lights and the crew and the actors and the whatever for a haunt, you better make sure you get that 2-second clip that you needed right ahead of time. If you need the guy going down the hall with the chainsaw, get the guy going down the hall with the chainsaw, you know?
Right.
And it's also, oh, go ahead, Abe.
Oh, I was going to say, even with the run and gun style that we just did for the amusement park, there has to be intent there. There has to be like, are you selling a good time? Are you selling an adventure? Are you there? The camera angles and how it's, even with the run and gun, you still have to have some intent behind the imagery.
Mm-hmm.
It can't just be, otherwise it would just be a big wide shot of an amusement park and you're done. Like,
yeah. We actually had too many directors on that shoot, and of what they wanted,
Yeah, and that happens sometimes. It's not, it happens at haunts. It happens everywhere. Like people have an idea in their head, and it's about figuring out a way to balance, who's on set and who's not, what's going to happen. And sometimes it butt heads, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it works really smoothly. You just got to
don't be afraid to grab the magic that you didn't plan on.
Right.
It happens.
Well, I think that's what we've got figured out. With like the partnership that Blind7 and FearWorm has, is that like we have a shoot coming up where there's literally 3 different shoot crews, and it's not that there's going to be a situation where there's too many directors on set. It's just each shoot crew has different objectives.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's pre-planning. That's the planning phases. We went into it knowing that we needed to capture multiple things in different styles. So why not go into it with 3 different approaches? And that way you end up with a whole bunch at the end.
Yeah. And that shoot in particular is kind of opposite of what you're talking about as far as run and gun. I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but we're actually planning out things to a T where there's actually set pieces that have to be built for this concept. And so it's like, Abe, when it comes to this broad spectrum of shooting styles, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the run and gun, or do you prefer to plan and set everything and pre-production out everything?
Okay, it's 100% honest. I'm not a fan of the run and gun, and that's just because I like to take my time and be able to I start thinking about the edit before I ever even turn the camera on. So I'm trying to think of how it's going to all go together as a story, because the story for me is the most important part. Like whether I'm telling the story of, this creepy creature or whatever, there has to be intent and a story behind it for me to be emotionally invested. And the more emotionally invested I am in the shoot, the better the shots come out, because that's just me. And most artists in general. However, run and gun definitely has its place. And I think that if you go into a situation not knowing either way, like what you're doing, that's where things get tripped up. Mm-hmm. If you're going in for a run and gun, you can prep for run and gun, but I would much rather be able to be like, okay, I have these 12 shots I need to get. I know I need to get it from this angle. I need to get it from this angle. And that allows me more time to work on where the light's going and things like that. Right. And, working with a makeup artist that knows what they're doing, I can get them on set and I can be like, oh, yeah, that needs touched up. And I don't have to worry about, sending them onto the other side of the haunted house to have them touched up and wonder where they're at for 3 hours. There's, right. Everything on set runs smoother if there's at least one person who knows the entire game plan.
For sure. So we have about 15 minutes left with Abe here. So go ahead, if you're watching right now, go ahead and drop your questions in the comments, and we'll start pulling those up towards the end. But Abe, you made me think of a good question for you. Is what do you do when you're coming to a shoot at a haunt? You show up on set, and everything was pre-productioned out, but now all of a sudden you find out you're shooting on the side of a mountain. What do you do?
Well, you do it. You just do it. Like there's, obviously safety first, but as long as the camera's okay in the end, I have stumbled off of cliffs. I have been fallen into 4-foot snowdrifts. I've been hit by large moving objects. I've been hit by Spaceballs. I've been tackled. I've been jump kicked. You just got to learn to roll with the punches. And it's being a creative that can work on the fly and handle whatever you're thrown at with minimal frustration is something I've strived to do since day one. I occasionally get a little flustered with things, but you just got to take a deep breath, smoke a cigarette, and call it a day. Just do what you got to do.
For sure. Abe, what I want to ask you just as a fun question aside from maybe specific creative, but what's the hardest shoot you've ever had to do?
Ooh, hardest shoot. Man. Wow. Okay, you just hit me with a good one. Like hardest mentally or like hardest physically?
Both.
I would have to say it was a haunt, and it will remain nameless. But it was a long, treacherous 100-degree week, and there was way too many cooks in the kitchen, like way too many, and it was hot, and there was no air conditioning, and there was people yelling at people, and there was everybody wanted their own, space, and costumes were melting. It was just, it was rough to get through, but yeah.
So we did have a viewer question.
Uh-oh.
I think you kind of answered it earlier. This is from our friend Chris, basically asking what was your favorite shoot you've ever done?
Video wise, I would, man, I don't know. I would say I've probably shot 2,000 shoots in the last 10 years, and I don't know.
I understand the feeling.
Actually, one of my favorites. I happened to do a shoot on location, and I met some people, and I got to go shoot a farm in Wisconsin, and I went out there and I photographed all their animals on like black screen. So we built a book to put together so they could sell the magazine they were like a little roadside zoo. And I love working with animals. Like that's like my biggest thing. I would work with an animal over a human any day. Like it's just, I love animals. So being able to work with everything from a tiger to, a big boa constrictors to alligators, that was fun. Because it was fun until the bear destroyed my light. But he was a cuddly little guy. He didn't like the strobe.
But probably favorite shoots end up coming with who are the people you liked working with most, or in the case of yours, the animals.
Yeah.
What did you get to go do? Like for me, it's probably shooting. I've done a lot of professional sports, or I got to go down on the field with the Texas Rangers right after they'd won the World Series and meet all of them and film them and do that kind of stuff. So for me, baseball, or I directed Nolan Ryan in a commercial, and he's one of my childhood heroes. Right.
Oh,
so he also kind of got mad at me during the shoot because I told him to say something some way. And he looked at me and he goes, "Son, I've been doing this for a long time. You don't need to tell me how to talk." But anyway, those are the kind of fun moments for me too. Like, who do you get to work with? Who do you have fun with? Right.
Oh yeah. I did a shoot I got to meet a bunch of celebrities, like me and a couple of my old crew got to go down and shoot a Comic-Con, and it was in Jekyll Island, Georgia. And I got to hang out with people that like I never thought I would get to hang out with. Mm-hmm. Like I got to hang out with like Katrina Law and Doug Jones, nice. Like that was my assistant at the time. He was like, he's still obsessed with Doug. He loves him. So it was nice that I got to introduce him to Doug. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we all kind of fanboyed. It's Doug Jones, but you know, being able to hang out with the celebrities after was nice because they weren't. They're not, you know, they're celebrities when they're on the floor, but then at the VIP thing, after the VIPs leave, they're just people. They're just chilling. They're having regular conversations and, you know, eating pizza. Like, it's nice to be able to see the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice when those are the people that are fun to hang out, right? People that you vitalized and you realize are good people, and then you have a good time with them. There's something, I guess, really satisfying about that. Yeah.
Met a couple that are not fun to hang out with, but that's, you know, years upon years of doing this.
So I have a great question here from Eric. He's asking more of a macro question. How do you balance work in the horror industry with having kids and maybe family? It says, I'm having twins, found out recently. So first of all, congrats on the twins, Eric. But Abe, work-life balance in the horror industry. What do you do?
You have a very, very understanding wife. I love you. Very understanding. Being with an artist of any kind, whether it's a musician, a painter, a creative who does video and photo, and pretty much anyone in the haunt industry will realize that, like, we're a weird breed. Like, we're workaholics that are constantly worried we're being lazy. So you have to deal with us coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning, covered in weird paint and goo, but not wanting to get up and go to Easter dinner. Like, we're weird people. So having someone who understands that is always a good thing. You can't always get that. So when you do it, it's about. My wife just commented. I saw that.
Juliet's
It's about. It's also about respect too. Like, I know that my partner is concerned with all the crap that I am. So I shouldn't be coming home and, you know, you get about a half hour of, you know, venting about your day or whatever, and then just be with each other. Like, and set work hours. That helps a lot. If you can set work hours, because your partner may be working a 9 to 5 or whatever, and when they clock out, they get their a half hour to vent when they get home, and then they're done for the day. As a creative, we're never done. So we have to kind of like police ourselves. So, and that's something that we can do for our partner. And, you know, you got kids coming and whatnot. Like, you're going to have to cut into your time. And that's something that you should be willing to sacrifice for your family. But at the same time, you don't sacrifice at all, because you need that outlet. You need to be able to continue doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you'll be miserable, and your family will know you're miserable.
I have a client that, instead of saying work-life balance, why don't we call it work-life harmony? Work-life balance is this: I'm working or I'm not working, right? And pre-pandemic, it was like, I work Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5:30, and then I don't work. Well, harmony would be, you know what? Maybe I did something with my kids on Monday afternoon, but I made up for it on Monday night or on the weekend or another time. Work when you need to work. Don't work when you don't need to work. Let the two, instead of the two being I got to go to work, my life, you know, sucks now. It's like, no, just if you can find what you love to do, which is the reason so many people get into this industry in the first place, right? Find the fun in work, and it's not work too, you know, to try to create that harmony.
I always love that saying. What was it? Was it do what you love and you'll never work a day? Bullshit. Right. You'll be going to work 20 times harder because you're going to live because you love it.
Yeah, this is true.
But you can also get some self-actualization, right? Self-actualization is not about money. It's about doing what you love to do, getting paid for it, and getting that satisfaction from doing what you know you were meant to do.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with money, you know.
Right.
Usually it has to do with making things better, making art, making people happy, helping others, you know.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has the goal of, you know, I want my hobby to make me millions, but it's not about that. Have the hobby make you happy first. Mm-hmm. And then the money will come down the line. Keep doing
it. Happiness is the new wealthy. So it's totally true. I love what you said, Ernest, about harmony. I like that. I think I'm gonna say
Or the other one, money can't buy happiness, but it can rent it for a while.
Yeah, I can pay the bills.
Right. So last question. I think this is a great one to end with you, Abe. Where did it go? So this is from this is from Mary. She says, "What shoot would you like to do that you have not done?"
I would love to photograph underwater. And I don't mean like at a pool. I mean, like, I would love nothing more than to work for National Geographic and go film somewhere underwater on the coral reef. Like, that is, or, a bug in the middle of nowhere. Like, I want to create nature films that if I was to ever create my own movie that I didn't have $100 million budget, it would be a nature film.
It's Abe in a Shark Tank.
Yeah, I was thinking of Abe with like floaties on and like a black magic camera, just like sinking down, filming sharks. And things
Believe it or not, yes, I'm a big boy, but I can swim.
Well, Abe, thank you for coming on today to the Wormhole. If anyone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way that someone can get a hold of you?
Blind7photography.com or pretty much any Blind7 Photography on every social media. I don't think I've missed one yet.
Awesome. Well, Abe, thanks again for coming on. Ernest, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Abe. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you to Tashana.
Hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, it was perfect. Thank you to Tashana, FearWormer Tashana, for working our comments and social media for us today. Abe, if you can, just hang out after the Wormhole after we're done broadcasting so we can grab a photo. And all right, everybody. Well, we'll be back not next Friday, but the Friday after that. And I think we're going to have the Terror Vault on. And so that's going to be an interesting conversation of an incredible haunted house in the California area. So stay tuned 2 weeks from now on the next Wormhole. And until then, we will see you later. Bye.
If you have an interest in being a guest on the Wormhole or an idea for a topic of discussion, please email admin@fearworm.com.